A lot of my memories from my childhood are trauma-based. I didn't fully understand what was happening because I was such a young age. It started when I was 2 years old and didn't stop until I was 12 years old. And my sister, we went through it together and started for her at 4 and ended for her at 14. And so at the beginning, we both didn't really know what was going on. And we knew something was wrong and that we didn't feel safe. But, you know, at that age, you have no grid for understanding, especially sexual abuse. It was something that felt like I was gonna have to go through it forever. I never really saw it ending. It was a person that was really close to my family and really trusted. So they had essentially like unlimited access to me and my sister. Definitely, especially at those ages, there's a lot of shame that was connected to it and a lot of like, you put a lot of blame on yourself. We weren't actually able to speak it out until I was like 16 and my sister was 18 was the first time we actually vocalized like, this happened.
I remember when I got the call from Bryn, and I was actually in one of the back rooms in the office, and Bryn called with a therapist, and she goes, "Dad, I have something to tell you." And when she told me what had happened, I just sat there numb at first, and then I just cried from all afternoon, all night, and I just couldn't believe that what could happen, and just the brutality of it, and the duration of it. After that call from Bryn, a lot of dots did connect, and it began to understand, because what happened when they were 15, kind of going into 16, their look changed, their behavior changed, their attitude changed, and we couldn't understand what was happening. And I think when they were beginning to come into their sexuality, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of shame, a lot of self-hate, and that manifested in lots of different ways. And so everything began to make sense.
So I struggled a lot with post-traumatic stress disorder, which for me looked like reoccurring nightmares of things that had happened or flashbacks and really bad anxiety. Going through that, not knowing how to cope with it, I turned to drugs at 12. My sister had started using, and she came to me and she was like, "Bryn, I found something that actually helps. Like, you won't remember these things anymore. You won't feel this pain. It's actually gonna help you." And I wanted that more than anything. And I started with, smoking weed and drinking, and even went to cocaine at 12. It definitely brought both me and my sister to a really dark place. And, mental health was really bad over those years. I had points where I thought I was actually going insane and that I was crazy. And I didn't want to attribute it to the drug use because I didn't want to stop using drugs. So I just was like, I am crazy. In university, my older sister, Abby, was my best friend. And we both were in rehab actually at the same time. And then we both got out of rehab. And she was living in an apartment downtown Toronto, and it was not that far from my school, so I was there every day. So our friends were essentially the, outcasts of society. Again, I thought I was safe with them because they cared about me, or I thought they cared about me. On May 23rd, 2018, people that I thought were our friends ended up murdering my sister.
So I was walking home and I got a call that Abby had been stabbed. So when I arrived on the site of her apartment, it wasn't what I expected, that there was ambulances and police cars and the whole street was sectioned off, and kind of chaotic scene. And then the police took me, they said, "Okay, she's already been taken to the hospital." So I drove with the police to the hospital. They didn't really tell me anything. The doctor showed up with a very somber look on his face and pronounced Abby dead on arrival. We all just broke down in tears and disbelief of what we had just heard. And I looked over and I saw my daughter Bryn, and she crumbled to the floor. And later that night, I was in total confusion. I'm like, God, how could this happen? Like, Like, I've dedicated my life to you. I've given everything to you. Like, how could she be gone?
My life definitely changed forever. I went into the darkest period of my life that I've ever been in. I would pray, but my prayers were that God would take me too, and that I would also get murdered, or that something would happen.
So I went to bed that evening and really kind of spinning, not knowing what to make of anything, and in turmoil for sure. I opened my eyes the next morning and I looked over at my wife and said, I've got joy. And the revelation of Abby in heaven was so strong. The revelation of God's mercy and his plan. Abby was on a very dark path, and he had allowed her to come home early, and he had removed his hand from her for that period so that she could come home. So it's not the way that we would have scripted it, but she was into a lot of bad things, and her life was going down quickly. I would grieve for sure, but it was a different type of grieving because I was grieving with God, and it's because I realized that I'd cultivated a relationship with him. He wasn't a distant God. He was there with me. And so my tears were tears of healing. My grief was with him.
Yeah, she really loved people, really cared about people. Her heart was really for like the underdogs, the people that didn't, feel like they got a chance or didn't feel understood or heard in life or accepted. But she also really struggled. Like, she really struggled throughout her whole life, and, never got away from addiction or, those kinds of things, which led to a lot of like struggles in mental health.
After Abby's murder, Bryn was very hard to reach. She was into drugs. She was, I wasn't really able to have coherent, regular conversations with her. We would pray for her all the time, and we just kept the door open and kept inviting her and just trying to love on her any way that I possibly could.
I just started to get curious, and at a certain point, I was just so low, and I was really at a rock bottom, couldn't see things getting any worse. I didn't feel like I could change things for the better. I've tried rehab. I've done every kind of therapy. I've seen drug counselors, so many things, and nothing helped. But I hadn't tried this Jesus thing yet. It was the first time that the Lord spoke through someone that I actually received it. The Lord just opened my mail for this woman that was doing the deliverance session, and she told me so many things that had happened in my life that I did not talk about with people, that I didn't share with people. And just in tears, I was like, how did you know this? And that was really the starting point where I was so curious after that. I was like, how do I hear this? How do I hear the Lord's voice? How do I connect like that with God? And really, that's what started the whole journey. I went to Youth with a Mission in Kona, and during my discipleship training school, I essentially had an encounter with the Lord. The Lord took me through a series of visions, and essentially he showed me all these in these little boxes, memories from, whether it was cutting lines or cooking crack or hot wiring cars, whatever it was, all these memories of these, awful things that I had chosen to do. And he showed me these memories, and I just felt him weeping with me. And I could see these thick, ugly chains, rusted, huge chains that were coming out of every part of my body to these memories, holding on. And I just saw two small fingers just take these chains, making them look so tiny, and just snapping them as if they were little tiny twigs, and then they just left. And and then the Lord just said, how could you ever go back to that after experiencing me like this? And literally since that day, I've never used drugs again.
If I go 2 to 3 years ago, Bryn she lost about a third of her body weight. She was about 135 pounds now. She was like verging on 90 pounds. She was on pot 24/7 as her daily coping. Even she'd wake up in the middle of the night and hit some bowls. She was on all different drugs, medications, mentally ill. It's demonized. Everything that you can imagine. And now, literally, like if people that see her say she glows, right? That she's got a glory of God on her. That she's just emanating Jesus.
Me and my dad had a really rough relationship in my teenage years. I had a lot of hurt in my heart in our relationship because he had allowed the person into our lives that had abused me and my sister. And I held a lot of resentment for that for a really long time. And, the Lord started showing me, even though there was bad times, like, he fought for you. And he, tried so hard as a father, and, everyone is going to fall short. Everyone is going to mess up. And so really it was the process of forgiveness with my dad that, forgiving him for the people that he did allow into our lives that hurt us and those kinds of things that it's so funny because now my dad is my best friend. But we got to pick our top 3 apologetics arguments and then present them in any way we wanted.
So which was your number one? What one was the most compelling to you? So now my daughter and I have started a ministry called M46, and it's based on Malachi 4:6. So it's the hearts of the parents, or father to the children and children to the parents. So it's restoration of family. And to think that Bryn and I would be doing this, if you look back, 3 or 4 years ago, would be unimaginable. And the fact that, we've had a series of books and Bryn and I are now co-authoring books. It's just an incredible way to glorify God and express who he is with the world and share who he is with the world. So as we share our stories, people can grab a hold of the faith and they can experience the same transformation in their life, the same healing in their lives, and then they can begin to share their stories. So it's a multiplication effect.
Life with Jesus is so full. It's so joyful and fun that I don't see the need for it anymore, because at the time that was the only time I ever felt, not real happiness, but I thought, or this false joy was when I was using. And so, to have that magnified times 1,000 sober is wild.